Welcome to Epimeleia, the self-realization podcast where we address all things having to do with
self-love, self-care, and community service.
I am Filipp Fuchs.
And I'm NaVarre.
Okay, who goes first?
You.
Yeah, Epimeleia. What does it mean, actually? So, why are we doing this podcast? Epimeleia is the old Greek word for self-care, self-love. So, it implies a good, nurturing self treatment, discovery. And uh, and so we choose that name for the podcast. It is also the same name of a place here in Germany where people can do this. They can treat themselves well and learn how to do this. So we decided to call this little podcast Epimeleia as the center of this coming together here in South Germany on
Yeah,
a
and
castle,
and
on a
just let
thousand-year
them know
castle.
where the castle is.
Yeah, the castle is located in South Germany near the French border on top of a mountain of the Black Forest. It's close to Baden-Baden, a very little picturesque little town in South Germany. And it's a thousand-year-old castle with a lot of history. And it was basically for the last decade, it was used as a restaurant and as a spot for people to visit and to have a view around. And you can basically, you have a view, let's say about 150 kilometers far away. You can see France, you can see the French mountains.
It is stunning. It is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, you were
We
here. Yeah.
we we started our first workshop of Epimeleia a month ago, and it was a wonderful experience and a huge success for everybody who attended. And I think we're going to start this first podcast by just talking a little bit about what that process entailed. But first, I just want to say self love, self care. This is something for me that I have dealt with and worked on pretty much my whole life as a spiritual adept, as a teacher, as a counselor, and as a guide. And I think it's really important at this time, especially with all the changes that are taking place globally, that we have a sense of self care and self love because what is happening right now requires that we have this nurturing of ourselves as individuals, but also come together as community, as groups, as we did last month. And this is the process moving forward. We will be discussing all manner of self love, self care, spiritual practices, grounding, centering, meditating, healing, transformation. That's what this podcast is really dedicated to. And we have many tools, many resources that we will be offering over the course of however long we do this cast.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, yeah, I think what was very interesting because we both basically, from my perspective, we grew into this workshop because we both have, I mean, we both look back, you a little bit longer than I, of a lot of changes in our lives, a lot of process, struggling, learning. And also, we both dedicated big parts of our life in sharing those with
Hmm.
other people. And so we are friends for over 2 decades now. And we each and one of us had our own growth, but still we were also growing together. And this workshop we started here in February, at the end of February 2025, was basically a long ripe fruit
Yes.
which came into fruit, and it basically it happened by itself. Actually, there was not a lot of um, decisive workshop planning involved, to be honest. But we we learned how to trust, how to really trust the process, that all we have to offer will be there at the right moment. So this was our take on.
Mhm.
And we were both, may I say this, we were both very surprised by how well that worked. And because we say a little bit about, you said something about that we are living in times where this becomes very essential,
Yes.
where, yes,
Yeah, and the name of our first seminar was called A Gathering of Sovereign Souls. And this was really the only preparation that we had going into this, with the intention of using the time that we had, 3 days, to help whoever arrived claim more of their sovereignty as a soul. And this was really a spiritual perspective. What does that mean? How do you do it? And we intentionally did not plan this in great detail because we have decades of training and experience in guiding others into this process and many tools. And it was kind of like playing jazz, in which we just listened to the group, we listened to each other, we played off of each other, and it sort of arrived spontaneously. And this is something that I have discovered after I've been teaching for 4 decades, that because of the way of the world at the moment, how things are changing so quickly, that we have to be spontaneous. It's very, very difficult, if not impossible, right now to make solid plans and have those plans manifest the way that we imagine them, because everything is just in constant motion and it feels very chaotic. But in that chaos, there is freedom. There is the ability to make choices moment to moment using whatever tools and resources that are available to the individual. And this is really what the core of the work is about at this time. So I wanted to say that because this spontaneity is one of the hallmarks of a new paradigm of creating in the moment based upon what is happening and what is needed for the health and well-being of the individual, the group, and the community.
yeah, thank you, Ron. Very well said. Thank you. What I wanted to add, because you mentioned the name of the workshop. It was the Gathering of Sovereign Souls, and I would
Mhm.
like to um, explain a little bit what we mean by soul, because I think it's first of all, it's just a word. It's just a concept, okay? And but what do we mean by this? And I think it's a very individual trait each and every one of us has, but it's not our identity or role we were given or started to learn by our experiences of with our parents, for example, or what in what school we went, or what kind of childhood we experienced. This identity, because this is how identity grows, basically. It grows through experience, certain people, certain choices in life, or certain destinies which happens to us, and this gives us this identity. And but this is kind of rigid, and this, on the other hand, this identity of soul, which I think we are somehow given, or we just have it, and we can go into this maybe later and talk about this, but this is the total opposite. It's not rigid, it's not grown over years and decades. It's something very alive. And there comes back into what you just said about being spontaneous, being in the moment, and really trusting that this is there for you, that this identity is always there and tangible. But what we also learned during the workshop, what was very important is it needs space. It needs a kind of space and realm to be sensed, because the structure or the identity of our life is very loud, and it's in our brain, it's in our thoughts, and we keep repeating this. And if we want to sense that other part of identity, that soul aspect, it really needs quietness, listening, so a realm or a space is created where this is possible. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. So I would say that soul is our essence. And from a spiritual perspective, from my experience, soul is an extension of the divine consciousness. You can call it an extension of God or source, however you choose, but it's kind of like a drop of water from the ocean. And when we come into this reality of three dimensionality on the plane of the planet Earth, we take on this physical avatar, this vehicle that allows our soul to experience in this dimensional reality. And it's very unique and it's very precious, this experience. It's kind of like going to school or going to some virtual reality, in that we are given this avatar experience of a body. And as you mentioned, in early childhood, the development of our earthly identity, most often based upon our family, our name, our lineage, and our race and nationality, religion. There are many layers to that. But identity is something that develops over the course of our lifetime. In psychology, we know that a lot of our belief structure within our identity is pretty much hardwired by the time we're 8 to 10 years old. And what I mean by that is, the beliefs of our family, of our society that we grow up in, our ethics, our morals, and we attach to those as a personal and a communal identity. And we say to ourselves, well, this is who I am. What happens is we forget who we truly are behind that identity, as this soul, which is immutable and eternal. And what often happens is we get so invested in playing the role of our identity, like an actor playing a character, that it creates all sorts of dramas and conflicts and interesting narratives throughout our lives. And what I have found in the last several years is that the individual en masse, many, many people are starting to become aware of that. They are beginning to realize that I am something more than the character of Ron that I have played my whole life. And I want to discover that. And as you said, to discover that, first of all, you have to make the space. You have to hold that space long enough. You have to be quiet and intend to go in. And most often through meditation, through contemplation, discovery, exploration. This is where we find that connection to our essential soul self. And that's when the work that you and I teach really begins.
What I
Thank
wanted
you.
to add to this, what you just said, there is one saying which really nails it in. So, and it's a shift of perspective. And it really does something if you think about it. So it is not that we are humans who have a soul or a body, like that we
Hmm.
are a body who has a soul, but that we are a soul who has this human form
Hmm.
right now.
Yes.
And this made it, I think this makes it so, if you think about it and you really go into this, because, and it resonates, there is some truth to it, because people, you tell people this and people, there is a resonance to this. It's not just like some wild theory, but this change of perspective that, are you right? Yes, there is
Hmm.
some ring to it, some truth to it, some resonance. Yeah.
Yeah, so we say that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience more than we are physical beings having a spiritual
Spiritual,
experience.
yes.
So, what do we mean by spiritual? How do you define that, Philip?
Hmm. I'm very, very shy to talk about it because it's such a stretched term.
Mm.
It's a very glittering word, and it has so many, it stands out, and so many different viewpoints use that word in such a different a manner
Hmm.
but that I really want to base this actually in not in theory, but I want to base spirituality in a living experience.
Mm. Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
And because I think, for example, like religion, okay? I mean, there were some, and I'm sure in all the religions in the beginning there were some revelations, some experience, which very truthful, felt experience, which then had so much power that they became a religion, that people started following this, people started writing down.
Hmm.
And as soon as this starts, we can see it at the Christian church, for example, as soon as this starts, it gets somehow it starts it stops being alive. It gets written down, it gets fixed in ideas
Hmm.
and in words. And I think the essence of every religion is spirituality.
Yes.
It is the deep knowing of something, of this. I am a part of something much bigger. You can call it God or whatever, universe or
Hmm.
anything. There's this deep knowing and longing for the understanding of this. The basically it is the journey back to the source,
Mm.
and this journey back to the source in our human existence right now. So this
Yes.
is how I would describe spirituality in its pure form. It's this deep knowing, not on an intellectual level, but somehow deep inside myself, that if I encounter that, if I have in my earthly existence have encounters or experiences like that, I know it right away.
Hmm.
And I
You
have
feel
that
it.
connection. I have that, I feel it. I have that
Hmm.
resonance. And
Yes.
this, of course, makes me go, yes, yes, that's it. Okay. And it can grow. I mean, we see it everywhere. And it's not about spirituality. I want to say this, it's not about convincing somebody. It's not something you can transport. You can't give someone spirituality.
Hmm. Right.
I think it's a very individual discovery of that resonance, what bigger than me, you know. It's not that
Hmm.
earthly existence. It's something beyond life and death. It's something beyond that, you know.
Yeah. So I would
And
say that that's what you're talking about is connection and communion with your soul and your divine essence, be it God or source, versus religion. I was born and raised as a Lutheran, I didn't have a choice. That's the family that I grew up in. That's the religion. And for me personally, I never found a connection or a sense of community in that structure, because the training, the religious dogma, to me just did not seem real. It felt kind of like a fairy tale to me. All these stories that I was told as a child to believe under severe punishment if I did not, which again I didn't quite understand. So by the time I was 11 or 12, and I had discovered Taoism, which is a Chinese philosophy of life and nature, I realized, oh, there's more than what I grew up with. And that was the first time that I sort of questioned my identity, my group identity. But I was very curious because there was something that I felt a connection to when I read the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, and it hit me. And I thought, oh, I understand this. This is very poetic and esoteric, but it seems practical to me. It seemed to me like a way to experience myself and my connection to nature, the world, the universe, and beyond. And so that led me to studying the Eastern religions and philosophy, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism. And I went to my parents and I said, you know, I don't think I want to continue going to church. And by that time, they sort of knew that I had a curiosity and a path to pursue. And they said, sure, you can make that choice. And this is when I chose to leave religion and enter spirituality. And it's been a lifelong process of discovering myself, my connection, my communion, my unity with the divine through the many different practices that I have discovered, from martial arts to the healing arts to the performing arts. All of these gave me sort of a direct experience of myself in the moment, without these layers of dogma, rules, and beliefs. And what I'm seeing in my clients and my students that I work with is that same questioning that I experienced early on in my life. Many people who have lived for decades and decades with their religions are now starting to question that and say, you know what, I don't feel fulfilled. I feel like there's something else, there's something more. And they often come to this experience through an identity crisis. And that can be a health crisis, it can be losing a job or relationships, whatever challenges that solid, unquestioned sense that we call identity is an opportunity to now discover another dimension, a way into that greater sense of who we truly are. And that's really what we have been working on together for quite some time, and what gave rise to us creating Epimeliea and helping others do the same through the many tools that we have, and being creative.
Yeah. And I wanted to maybe say a word because you mentioned it to the time right now, this time quality we live in. And I mean, you can see it everywhere. It's really beyond rationality what we see. It's so crazy. It's
Mhm.
so crazy what we see. So basically, the old form, this was gave us identity like nationality or job or religion. You mentioned religion.
Mhm.
this gave us some kind of a safety boundary, and
Hmm.
somehow we, as a species, we grew beyond that, and this is now restricting. This is not protecting anymore. For example, I'm a sociologist, so I studied societies and how they evolved, and basically these what came up in societies, like religion or whatever, it was always a way of simplifying complexity. This is basically the reason why this all in the modern society, this is how we live right now. Okay, we can see it everywhere, and and somehow, and this protected us. This gave us this reduced complexity. It gave us a way of living. It made us more healthy, and so on and so forth. But now I think we are reaching a tipping point in our development around the world where this is not longer serving us as a whole, as a society. And and you can see it everywhere, that these you mentioned crises, that we our in our personal experience, like, no, it's not serving anymore. I have to grow beyond. For example, the job. Let's say 30 years ago, you picked a job, you did the job, or 40, 50 years ago, you picked this job, you did this job your whole life, and it was perfect, it paid the bills and everything. And so we don't live in these times anymore.
Hmm.
Um, like when you're lucky, you do something you love and you want to just continue loving it, or doing it, and loving it. And but for the most people, this changes much quicker than, like, say, 30, 40 years ago. This is a
Hmm.
much quicker pace of change happening. You could see it everywhere that this is not longer serving, and everybody can experience it. And the
Yeah.
question which rises out of that automatically is, what is it? What is it that's really yeah,
Well,
why am
you're
I here?
using the word serving, and I want to talk a little bit about serving and service. And you said it, if it's no longer serving, you're no longer growing. So, serving and service, what serves us helps us grow and expand. And part of the identity crises that many people are discovering, as you mentioned, let's say your job. Yes, decades ago, you chose a profession and you created an entire identity around it. This happens with many people, and it was kind of like an old meme of the midlife crises, most often for the man who was the primary wage earner, and therefore the job became the primary identity for the man. And what would happen later in life in the late 40s, early 50s with a man is they would get tired of their job, especially if it was a job they didn't love. It was just something that they paid the bills with. And they started to question, do I want to continue? Can I continue with this? Or they would get laid off. And this is something like in the financial industry in 2008 when there was the financial crash. Many people who worked on Wall Street who lost their jobs, they also lost their primary identities. And many of them became so despondent. Some of them committed suicide. Many became ill, ended relationships, like their entire lives crumbled because they could not continue with an identity that was no longer serving them. In this case, because of an external issue. But this happens internally all the time, such as being in a relationship where you outgrow it, which happens all the time. And you suddenly realize, wow, this is not fulfilling anymore. I don't feel like I'm growing as an individual and we're not growing together. Therefore, our relationship is no longer serving us. And this is something that many people are experiencing either as a result of their own personal growth in which they are expanding beyond the parameters of a given identity, or because of an external circumstance, layoff, losing a job, having to move, changing locations. These external factors create a very similar experience in that crisis point. What I want to say about that is it's a wonderful opportunity.
Mhm.
It is the primary opportunity right now for discovering who you really are and what you need in order to grow and expand. And one of the tools that we used in our workshop were the three primary questions of what do I need now? What do I wish to experience? And what do I choose to create? And by asking those three questions of self, we begin to expand to pretty much the limit of our chosen identity of the given moment. And that makes us question, is it serving me? Is it still serving me? Do I still have room to grow? Or have I reached the limit of what I can get for growth and expansion out of this at this time? And if that is the case, now I go to the next level, which is who am I now? Where am I now? And what do I need right now to continue to expand?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. You mentioned that you mentioned just like a little bit of the workshop, what happened there. A thought to this. It is. I mean, there are so many workshops out there. There are so many inspirational, great stuff. People who really share and inspire people. But still, I want to make a distinction because this, what we did here and what we're going to continue doing in the future. I think we are might up at in October doing the next one.
Yes.
Um, is it's not something. It's not a technique. Of course, we have, and we will talk about it in the podcast during like there are little things we can do. There are
Mhm.
little things, and if we do them, and I'm 100% sure they will work. The only problem is you have to do them.
Mhm.
But if you do them, they really do work. But it's not about like a new philosophy, a new, oh, this is the wagon, jump on our wagon, and this is how the wagon rides. No, it's really dedicated to the uniqueness of each and every one. And so I don't want to say it's for everyone because I think it's for people who are at a certain point of their life and a realization they really want to go a step deeper, and the questions or basically the religions or whatever didn't serve that, or that they don't give them any answers anymore. And
Mhm.
this is maybe for these people who say like, no, I feel this. How do I cope with this?
Mhm.
How do I facilitate it? How do I access it? All these questions.
Mhm.
And I think we can help in this. And there are simple little things which are very powerful if you do them. And yeah, and this is what I want to stress that it's not about a new religion or philosophy or viewpoint on
Mhm.
things. So it's really made for an experience for each and every one's individual soul.
Yeah. And what you said, it's not for everyone. Everybody is at a different stage of their development. As individuals, we're all resonating at a specific frequency of consciousness. This is how I would describe it. That is unique to us. No two people are going to be resonating or tuned exactly the same way. And this is why we have tools, techniques, principles, and practices that we incorporate as a way to find within the individual where they are, how they are operating, functioning, performing, what frequency they are currently resonating in. And that is the beginning point of of claiming self-ownership of sovereignty. Um, if you're trying to do this growth process and be creative like someone else is doing it, most likely you will not find fulfillment or success because it is not to be done like anyone else. It has to be done the way that you do it, based on who you are and where you are in your development and your needs. And we often talk about in the world right now, it's kind of divided into thirds. There are those people who we would say are asleep. They do not question. They just want to be told what to do, how to do it, and they use religion or politics or economics, whatever the system might be, to stay in that sort of framework. Then there's another third of people who are beginning to activate and to awaken. And that is, they are beginning to question the lifelong identities and systems that they have found consistency in. And then there's another third of the population that is awake. And these are people who have gone through this process of activation and expansion. And during that process, there's often this cleansing and clearing of letting go. I'm letting go of my old job. I'm letting go of this relationship. I'm letting go of my attachments to certain belief structures because it doesn't serve me now. And in the process of cleaning house, so to speak, we create more space internally that allows us this room to explore within, but also we begin to create space externally, which allows us additional space to expand inward and outward at the same time. The primary process is going inward. And that is where we employ our tools, techniques, principles, and practices, not as a religion, not as a hard, rigid, it has to be done by the book and it's formulaic. No, it
Mm,
is not. I mean, we've both worked that way for many years because that's the way that we're trained.
mm,
This is the way it's done, and you do it like that. Like I studied Tai Chi with my teacher for 4 years, diligently, trying to do it exactly like my teacher. And then one day he turned around and he said, "Make it your own. Do it like you." And it was a statement and a question that blew my mind
mm,
because I grew up from an early age studying martial arts in which the goal was to perfect the form by doing it exactly as your teacher, by following somebody else's example. And then suddenly this teacher whom I revered said, "No, no, don't do it like me." And basically what he did was gave us permission to begin to claim ourselves within that practice.
mm,
And that is sort of the path that I have always taught in my own classes. Yeah, you learn, whatever it is you're going to learn in terms of a form or a structure. But at a certain point, once you're familiar enough with that, don't try to replicate it the way I do it because you can't. You're not me, you're you. Now, how do you do it? How do you see it? How do you feel it? And this is that emancipation to be set free from the dogma of having to stay within a very rigid structure.
mm. Yeah, thank you, Ron. And I wanted to tell the listeners, which I don't see the video, that when Ron talked about that this crisis and this chance in it, which by the way is the same sign in the Chinese language, crises and ch no, crisis and opportunity is the same.
Mhm, mhm,
Crisis and opportunity is the same, and there was this joyful expression on Ron's face while he said it, and I wanted to point this out because it's very important. Because our psyche, functions this way, that it wants to stay safe. It wants to stay safe, things it learned, it wants to recreate, it wants to go this. This is why a lot of people have a hard time going to therapy because there is this fear of, oh, I'm stepping on unfamiliar ground. And and most people, which are most time when they suffer too much, they do it anyway, and then they find out, oh, that's not this. Oh, I expected something much worse. These, monsters in the closet, they're not there. And but what I want to point out that this process we are talking about is a very joyful one.
Hmm.
And once and I think you just need a little whiff of it um, to experience that. And it's a very, very pleasant and joyful one because once you start realizing your authority, your the ownership of self, it starts really, it becomes very free. And I think this is, we all, as souls, as humans, this is one of our highest aspirations, is freedom.
Hmm.
Freedom is top notch. Like
Hmm.
freedom is really something to be autonomous and to really and this basically adds on what we said in the beginning. It was about you said something about community, that also this workshop was about finding each other in different similar circumstances, or creating this group um, where we can grow together, because this is a reflection and this is also our deep longing for relationship.
Hmm.
On one hand, we have this deep longing of autonomy, but that's the opposite. Like if you look at it superficially, it's the opposite of relationship. Autonomy, relationship.
Hmm.
And but I think if we play relationship wisely and not use the other one to give us uh, um, justifications for our feelings and whatever, but if we're really saying, "Oh, thank you for that reflection you're giving me. Thank you that I can experience this right now. And really um, give the other person, your opposite, full authority of themselves and not using them," then it's really wonderful community work.
Hmm.
In either is it in maybe in partnership or in relationship or in group relationship. This is like the ground. If the ground is prepared and it's equal, we are all equal. We are all vulnerable. We are all sovereign. We don't
Hmm.
need each other, but we are willingly here. We are willingly sharing. Then this can be very, very powerful in my experience or in the past. This can be a very strong healing uh, um, a booster
Hmm.
of personal process.
Yeah.
That I'm in my personal process, and just by being in community, just by being there, not by especially doing something or receiving something, but just by being there, things get, or the right things get stronger. You get into a
Yes.
process and it works. So, yeah.
Yeah, we all crave relationship and community. If you think about it, one of the worst punishments that we can inflict on someone is to put them into isolation, in which they have no connection to anyone else.
Mm,
It is through everything is relationship. You have a relationship with self, with your own thoughts, your own feelings, beliefs, intentions. You have a relationship with your environment, your personal space, the greater world. A lot of people here, I live in New York City. Some of my friends and relatives go to church or synagogue, not because they are so invested in the religion anymore. It's really just to go and experience community. And that is such a
mm,
powerful force.
mm,
And it's part of what's happening in our world right now is our communities are being threatened by unpredictable and rapid change, whether that change is coming from the political environment or the economic environment or the physical
Environmental.
environment. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
and so we're going to be seeing a lot of continuation of these changes, which will appear as if our community structures are going to fall apart. But as you said in Chinese language, crisis and opportunity are one and the same. So I just want to say, because we have to wrap up,
Yes.
let it fall apart. Do not fear that process of this change and what feels like everything is crumbling. Because we all know that the current structure of society has sort of reached its end point of being of service to the masses. It's too unbalanced now. And we see this in economic inequality, but it's happening in all systems. Understand that it is a essential part of the process, this destruction of the old system, so that we have the opportunity to create a new one. And I had a friend call me yesterday in a panic about the state of the world, especially here in the United States. And I said, well, part of why you're panicked is you're trying to protect and preserve a system that no longer exists. It's already altered to such a degree that there is no going back. So let it go and instead focus on what you wish to experience, what you wish to
Create.
create
Mm.
for yourself and within community.
Mm.
So our goal is to create little micro communities
Yeah.
all over the world to support each other during this time of crisis and opportunity
And change. Yeah.
and change. Yeah.
Yes.
That's why we are doing this podcast. That's why we offer our workshops and our seminars and our classes. Build that community, start within yourself, do the work. This is healing and transformation of letting go of the old that no longer serves and beginning to discover who you are, your power, your authority as an individual, as a creative soul,
Mm.
and then bring others, even if it's just one or two people to begin with, and
Mm.
start to form those little micro connections and communities. They
Mm.
will serve you very, very well. And we are here to help you.
Yes, we do. So thank you. Wonderful said. Wonderful point, Ron. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Philip.
It was wonderful talking to you. I think it's a good start. And thank you out there to all the listeners who took the time to listen to our thoughts.
Hmm.
And I might say they come from our heart.
Absolutely.
Fame or financial interest doing this podcast. It's
Hmm.
really about sharing, growing. It's also for us an opportunity to grow further, to become more clear, more grounded, and all these things. And it's about sharing. And this is what we do here. So thanks for
Wonderful.
sharing, Ron.
And thank you, Philip. And we'll see you next time.
Yes. Bye bye. Take care.